The absolute best thing is that feeling, just this weird sensation that you have. It's like in your mind, in your stomach, everywhere. When you arrive into a brand new place for the first time you ever visit, that never goes away. So I think if you're hungry for this feeling, then yeah, like you have to move a lot. Yeah, you have to go somewhere new every time, you know.
Hey there, travel aficionados and aspiring remote work wanderers. It's your friendly podcast pilot speaking, again, ready to navigate the wild world of digital nomadism, and I can promise you less turbulence and more travel talk. Please fasten your seatbelt and put your chair in an upright position, because in today's episode we're tackling the question that's got more opinions than there are airport terminals in Atlanta. How fast or slow should you move around the planet as a digital nomad? My name is Palle. Welcome to 7 Nomads Part 2, Fast Travel versus Slow Mad.
The ultimate destination for armchair travelers who are looking for inspiration to get out into the real world and let loose their wanderlust. This is The Radio Vagabond.
This episode is brought to you in part by this website called hotels25.com. If you're a regular listener, you have heard me mention this before, and I can't say this enough. This is a cool website. It helps you find the cheapest hotel rooms around the world. Hotels25.com. You should try it out. It actually works.
Jet lag is for amateurs. The Radio Vagabond. Gotta keep moving.
Picture this. You're sipping on a coconut under a swaying palm tree one day, and the next day you're lost in the narrow streets of a bustling bazaar. But does the nomad life mean embracing the wild wind pace, just collecting passport stamps like they're Pokemon cards? Or does it involve setting up shop in a charming village where the Wi-Fi connection is as strong as the espresso? Again, we're letting the expert panel of digital nomads do the talking. So grab your noise-cancelling headphones and buckle up as we prepare to take off into the talk about digital nomad tempo. And please stay seated until we come to a complete stop. Let's start with Nora Dunn, the professional hobo from Canada, on how fast she's been traveling in her 12 years as a full-time traveler.
I like to say that there are times in my digital nomad career where I've traveled so slowly it was almost imperceptible.
Yeah.
But what I did along the way in quite a few places was I set up bases and used those as a base for exploration of the area. So the longest places that I stayed is I was in Australia on and off for a year and a half, New Zealand for 9 months. I was in Grenada in the Caribbean for 2 years. I was in Peru for 2 years. I was in Ecuador for 9 months. Those would be the longest spaces. Then there's other places, like I was in Hawaii on the Big Island for 6 months, Switzerland for 3 months. But those, barring Hawaii and Australia, those places that I had were places that I had established that I could be comfortable in, that would allow me to go deeper in the place that I was visiting. And so not only use it as a base for exploration of the region, which I did, but then also as a base for exploration of that actual place that I was, and to deepen relationships with the people who already lived there.
Yeah. So Nora has been having a base in parts of her nomad life, and now she actually has a home again. And that's also the case for the other Canadian, Mr. Derek Smith.
In the early days, it was 3 months at a time. I'd find a place and I would settle down, obviously check in on the Wi-Fi, make sure that's good, make sure I had my favorite restaurant. And then over the years, it just became more like 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. And now, even today, I have determined that the best way for me to operate is to have a hub. And I do have a hub on Madeira Island in Portugal. Right. So that's where I live, and I then travel from that hub. And I'll fly out, do a conference, host a festival, do whatever activity I want to do, but I always find my way back in Madeira. So for me, it's almost like, am I a nomad now? I'm definitely a type of nomad that finds himself traveling once a month for whatever activity it is, but then I do get myself back into my introverted home where I can put my feet up, read that book, and have my clothes hung up in a closet. So that's where I find myself after a decade of traveling the world. I now find myself with a hub.
Why Madeira?
Oh, I mean, beautiful people, beautiful ocean, my view just to see outside my front window is just giant ocean, and I'm in the middle of it, right? I'm literally in the middle of the ocean. It's great people, great food. I mean, for me, I love scooter life. I'm all about my scooter life. If I can hop on my scooter, go grocery shopping, and come home, that's what I got on Madeira. So I bounce around on my scooter. I know it sounds basic, but it's the greatest way to live as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a fan of being inside of a car anymore. I just like open air. It's like my little convertible, you know? And so I like that on Madeira Island. It's just the right size. And the last thing I'll say about Madeira Island is a lot of people think it's a small place. It's not. It's got 3 movie theaters. It's got shopping malls. Everything you need is on that island. So I'm not saying I'm there every day, but if I need it, I know I can go to a movie.
So you're not getting the island fever where it's like, oh my God, I'm seeing the same people. I need to go somewhere.
No, not at all. Actually, no, I'll say this. I don't think I see a lot of people, to be quite honest with you. So it's not that I see the same people. It's that I am a little bit isolated on there. That's where I get a lot of my virtual activities done because as a public speaking coach, I help people with their virtual event public speaking. So I'm on my computer a lot. So a lot of the communications and contacts I have are making eye contact with people on a screen. And that's why I find myself flying out every month to come to events and meeting people, shaking hands, saying hi to these people, and then finding my way back into my little introverted world where I then get back into the virtual world and then pop out again a few weeks later, go say hi to people. And, you know, again, it's wonderful that the Nomad community has been so good to me and they've embraced me because I tend to be the voice at a lot of these events on Madeira Island. So when you come, rest assured you got a free ticket if you want because I'll get it for you, you know?
And now I have it on tape.
Oh, no!
If travel is your passion and you want escapism while still upholding your work and family responsibilities, you can travel vicariously from the comfort of your own home. This is the Radio Vagabond Podcast.
We'll get back to the whole thing about having a home base and still being able to define yourself as a digital nomad a bit later in this episode. But let's turn to Italian Gianni and hear how he's been traveling.
Okay, now we have the term slowmad, a slow nomad, and basically that's what I've been doing for all these years. I usually tend to stay from 1 month, also sometimes 3, 4, 5 months, and typically the time that I'm allowed to stay according to the visa.
Yeah.
So especially, for example, if I go to Southeast Asia, mostly it's a couple of months, then you do maybe a visa run. In Malaysia.
Where you skip over the border, come back with a new stamp in your passport.
Exactly, and you stamp the second time the passport. So usually, in this way, I stay 4 months in Thailand. I like to go often in Thailand, and mostly according to the visa. I like this way because it's less stressful. It allows me to get into routine, which is very important to be productive. I see a mistake that many new digital nomads do when they start this lifestyle is jumping from one country to the other, because they think that is the lifestyle. But it's counterproductive because you don't have time to sit at the computer and work, actually.
I think it was actually at that place where we met in Stockholm that I spoke to Nomadic Matt, and he saw my plans of my travels, and he said, "Oh, dude, you need to slow down because you didn't go all the way to New Delhi to sit behind a computer all the time, and you'll have to do that because you still have to work."
Yeah, well, I noticed this after 1 year I was doing this lifestyle. 2014, I was probably in 15 different countries in 1 year. And then I realized, no, this is not the way. Especially when you create content, you have to spend a lot of time with these kind of things. I'm agree with Nomadic Matt.
So Chris, from the UK, you have been traveling as a nomad with your girlfriend for 5 years. How long time do you typically stay in the same location before moving on to the next one?
So we have some kind of rules on this. Right now, we like to try and spend between 2 and 3 months in a place. Of course, it varies because of visa limitations and things like this, but we found that over the more time we have been a nomad, the more time we like to spend. So when we started, we were doing 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month, and now it's expanded into 2 months or maybe 3 months. And the only exception to that, the other rule that takes precedent over all the other rules, is when it's the first time in a place. So the first time we visit a place, we just go for 1 month, just to see, do we like it? And if it's good, then when we come back, it's longer. But I think minimum 1 month, because less than 1 month is very difficult to really understand, do I like it? It's not fair to the location.
Mr. Bond.
Radio Vagabond.
Shaun, how about you? How long time do you typically stay in the same location before moving on to the next one?
I reckon about 3 to 6 months. I think it takes some time to really settle into a place, and it takes time to get to know the place. It also takes time to meet people and to build social connections with people. So I think when I first started nomading, the pace of my nomading was faster, maybe every month or so, every couple of weeks, every month. But as I've gotten older and spent more time in the space, I've realized that really, you know, if you want to be productive as well, if you want to get work done, you do need to cultivate a routine, and routines are cultivated over time. So I've slowed down a lot in my nomad career, and I think spending 3 months minimum, I think is a good chunk of time, because it allows you to set up a routine. It allows you to work on your health and fitness if that's important to you, which I think it should be. I mean, like, you do need to look after your health, and it also allows you to get to know the place. And there's that awesome feeling once you can navigate a place without using Google Maps. That is an amazing feeling, because that stress of figuring out how to get around is no longer there, and you can just kind of, there's more freedom in that when you know how to get around. And that takes some time, you know.
It does. I've been here in Bansko for a month now, and it's only been a week ago where I could, because they got so many small streets, and when I'm going down to the center, I've been using Google Maps to make sure I don't miss a turn, but now I can do it without. So now I'm good.
And it's nice. And then and you want to kind of relish in that newfound freedom for at least a little while before you leave and have to go through the whole process of getting to know another place again. Because that can be quite stressful.
This is the Radio Vagabond, a podcast from the digital nomad, too cool to ask for directions.
Ranika Koneru from Texas has been a digital nomad for almost 3 years.
For me personally, it's been anywhere between 2 weeks to 2 months. And I've been starting to embrace more slow travel, but I think I hit like a point after 2 months where I feel like I want to move on, either because of the season or just to find a different experience. As much as I absolutely love exploring new places, I also love going back to the same old places. And it's just exciting because you do have that sense of familiarity and like your compass around. But it's going to be a new experience because you're there with a better perspective.
Jason Robinson also travels quite slow.
I prefer to stay in one place no less than 1 month, preferably 2, maybe 2.5. I have to go back to the U.S. regularly to replenish my diabetes supplies. So my maximum is about 2.5, 3 months. But as a solo traveler, especially somebody who's new to travel, there are so many logistics in finding where you're going to stay, finding places to work. You know, every time you change locations, it can really make things difficult to get into a zone and actually get those things done that are necessary. And for me, there's a lot of that, and you have to pay attention to those internal signals. And I think the older the digital nomad is, the more aware they tend to be of what their body and their mind and their soul actually wants out of this. The younger, I notice, they are more so going with the flow. They have a skewed perception of time. They think they have to do it all right away, and that they must rush. And then once they realize, wait, I'm doing more things in a year than I was doing in 10 years, I have plenty of time. Let me slow down a little bit. I tend to see that
it should be the older that are rushing it, because we don't have that much time left.
It's the opposite, though.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've asked Eric if he's had times where he's been traveling too fast, and that's why he slowed down and decided to get a hub on Madeira Island.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what it is. I mean, it became a little bit overwhelming for someone in my position, plus also my personality type, where I tend to give out a lot of energy when I'm doing what I do. So by bouncing around to new places and having to always be dishing it out, I was exhausted every night of having to travel, find a place to live. I don't know where I'm going. Where's the restaurant? Well, how do I get there? Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff is not really my genius zone. It's like I don't necessarily am much of a researcher, so I would just rock up in any particular city and kind of figure it out as I was there, which in itself was exhausting. Yeah. And so it just became pretty obvious to me that I did need to find myself a hub, which for the record took a few years to find that hub that really worked for me. And now, like I say, Portugal has been that hub for me.
As we heard in the first episode with these 7 nomads, Shaun Busuttil from Australia is writing a PhD about digital nomadism. So with all the research that he's done, he knows more than most people what the trend is for nomads when it comes to fast versus slow travel.
In my experience, from the research that I've done, there's definitely a correlation between how long you've been a nomad and the speed of your travel. In terms of when you first start, I think the speed is quite fast. You're moving around a lot, and it makes sense because maybe you've been stuck in the the iron cage of work and sedentary society, and you're relishing that newfound freedom. So you're like, yeah, cool, I can travel now. So it makes sense to kind of explore that. But then I think the longer you've been in the space, the longer you realize that it's quite stressful, and I think can be unfulfilling for a lot of people to move around that fast because you don't really get to know the place. You're always on the move. It's hard to get work done when you're always on the move. So there does tend to be a slowing down as someone stays in the nomad space. Not always. It depends what your goals are. If you have a goal of visiting as many countries as you can before you turn a certain age, then you have a mission, so that would impel you to move quicker than someone else that doesn't really have that goal or that mission. But there's definitely a slowing down through the process.
The first 2 months of my journey in 2016, I was traveling in eastern part of Europe, and I did 11 countries in 2 months. And I could feel after those 2 months that, okay, I need to slow down now. It was getting a little bit where you taught me a term because I went to see so many churches and you said, you got the ABC.
Another bloody church.
Exactly. And you kind of get that because, I could see it's beautiful, but I've seen something similar. And I try to make sure that I listen to my gut, and sometimes I slow down because I need to stay hungry. I need to really appreciate another bloody church.
Makes sense.
Traveling is like a virus. Once you catch the bug, you can't get rid of it. The radio vagabond. Gotta keep moving.
I'm so different than all of you guys because most people say the same as you. At least 1 month, but typically 3 months. In my case, 1 month is a long time. I'm 5 weeks here, and that is one of my longest stay in the same locations in a couple of years.
Wow.
My 2022 was crazy. I had the average in the same bed was 3.5 days.
Oh,
that was my average.
Wow.
I moved 102 times. I did some road trips where it was just one night, so that's why it looked so crazy. But I was in more than 30 countries. If I count the countries I went back to the same year, 37 countries in 1 year. So
102 beds, you said, in 30 different countries. That's not that you're keeping count or anything like that, but that's that's pretty exciting. I think for me that would be an exhausting reality. I mean, after some time, I get also a sense of like when I arrive in a place for 7 days, I look at a map and I go, I'd love to do this, and this, and then I tend to end up doing this and that, but not all the things I want to do. I never get around to getting all of the things accomplished that I want to when I go to a place.
So this is really interesting because for me, somebody asked me yesterday, it's like, what do you love the most about when you travel? And I'm like, one of my favorite things is when I return to a place and it feels a bit familiar.
Yeah.
Like I don't know everything.
Yeah.
But like I don't know everything about Bansko, but when I come back here, I'll know like, oh, like I can get coffee in this really cool place, or like this is where everybody hangs out, or whatever. And that's nice.
Yeah.
But
I appreciate that too.
Yeah, but the absolute best thing is that feeling, just this weird sensation that you have. It's like in your mind, in your stomach, everywhere. When you arrive into a brand new place for the first time you ever visit, that never goes away. So I think if you want to have, like, if you're hungry for this feeling, then like you have to move a lot. Yeah, you have to go somewhere new every time, you know.
You can follow Palle on his Facebook page. Join the conversation about traveling and being a digital nomad. You can also see pictures, videos, and stories that don't necessarily make it into the podcast. Simply search for The Radio Vagabond. The Radio Vagabond. Gotta keep moving.
For me, time is moving slower when I'm traveling than it felt like it was when I had a home base back in Denmark, and my brain was more or less on autopilot, because I have to put it to work every day to find out so many little things like, where's the light switch? Where do I shop? And how do you find the right groceries in a different language? Jason feels the same.
100% agree that the amount of experiences and adventures that I feel like I'm having on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is tenfold, if not more, than what I was having in what my quote-unquote normal life back in the United States, where I was going into an office for 40 to 50 hours a week, going home exhausted. Essentially, Jason Moore, a mutual friend of ours, he said once, and he may have been paraphrasing somebody else, that a lot of people don't live 52 weeks in a year. They live 1 week in a year 52 times. And I think that a lot of people are doing that, and they're so exhausted and tired that they try to achieve one novel thing a week.
Yeah.
Well, in this lifestyle, we are often achieving many novel things in a week, and especially when we're changing locations and learning new people and new environments and new countries.
Down to where is the light switch?
100%.
Little things that we really don't think about. Going to the supermarket and all of that,
I stood and looked at yogurt for 15 minutes twice in the past 3 weeks.
In Bulgaria.
Bulgaria, yogurt is like a main ingredient, and they have... I thought buying yogurt in the United States was difficult because there are so many different varieties. Here, you cannot figure out what it is, and you're trying to use Google Translate to figure out what the words say. And I have literally twice stood for 10 to 15 minutes in front of the yogurt aisle. The first time I walked away without buying any yogurt because I was so crippled by not knowing what to do. But it is things like that where you are so aware of what's going on, your environment, it's so new, there's all of these things going on that you're not only on this higher plane of, wow, this is really cool and this is really neat, but you can also be in this zone of, there's so much going on that I don't even know what decision to make, and I just need to step away and step back and take a breath. So those experiences are happening, especially with me being a new traveler. I haven't been to 100+ countries. I've been to 20 countries in 5 years, not even that many. So there are just so many new things that are happening on a regular basis that your brain is pinging, and it's amazing.
But it's part of what makes the whole thing so exciting, right?
Yeah, like you think you bought yogurt, but it's actually like cottage cheese or something.
Yeah. I did a whole little online TEDx thing on this very topic. That's on the radiovagabond.com on the front page. Just scroll down to the bottom if you want to hear more about the perception of time and how I managed to slow down time. Yeah, because I've been traveling for 7 years right now, and it feels like a lifetime.
I like to find a local cafe, and go back to the same local cafe multiple times a week.
Yeah,
and there's like this magical moment when the staff in the local cafe, they see you every day for maybe 1 week, and they just think, okay, he's on vacation. But there's the point where they realize, like, maybe you're not here for holiday. Maybe you're not here on vacation. You've not come for 1 week and then disappeared.
Yeah.
You keep coming back. And at that point, it's like, you just get to have natural interactions with somebody who is probably from a place.
Yeah.
Or probably from the place that you're visiting, and for that reason probably has a lot of knowledge and insight and understanding of like how things work there, and maybe where you can get salted butter.
Yeah, exactly. Do you get to know the names of the people in that local cafe and say, hey, Sergio?
Yeah, it's always nice to do that. I think probably one of the most heartwarming interactions I ever had was in Porto, in Portugal.
Right.
And we really liked Portugal. It was a place that once we found it, we went back every year for a few years. It's run by this very nice family. I remember the dog's name because I have this black Labrador called Pixie. And maybe I remember the name because Pixie is also the Wi-Fi password. But it was so nice, right? Like, this is a place we could go take the morning coffee, stroke the dog remembers, even the dog remembers you, it's great. But the second time we went back to Porto, this is after like 1 year later, we returned and we went in and he remembered our coffee order, and he said to me, because I wear glasses, but on this day I'd been for a morning run or something, I had contact lenses in, and he's like, I almost didn't recognize you without your glasses after 1 year. And I'm like, this is the stuff where like, he's somebody where it's like, where can I get this thing? Or, hey, like, what are you doing this weekend? Is there some live music? And they can point you to the cool places. It's just amazing, and you don't get that when you go on a vacation or a city break. Porto is a popular city break destination, right?
Yeah.
You never get to that level of connection with somebody who's from the place.
Yeah, and it was Mesa
325.
325.
You heard it here first.
And when you get there, say hi from Chris.
Yeah, give Pixie a big Labrador cuddle from me.
One of the things that I enjoy about this lifestyle is showing up somewhere and not knowing anything, and then over the days and weeks learning where the things are and developing the relationships with the local, bakers and coffee makers, whatever it is, and starting to just get that little sense of familiarity.
And then you said after 10 years, and we've had that conversation that you told me that after 10 years, for most nomads, you get to a point where you want a home base. And before I hear what you have to say about that, let's get back to Gianni.
I started this lifestyle because I was bored of the concept of home, of staying in one place. And the more you travel, the more you go back to that concept. And maybe you miss to have a home, Or like, for example, when I started to travel, it's because I wanted to go out of the routine, the daily routine or the working routine. And then when you travel a lot, you realize how routine is important for everything. And so you travel because maybe you want to stay outside your home, leaving your home, feel free. But the more you travel, the more you give a value to the concept of home. So if you ask me now, after 10 years, I miss to have an home base. That's what I didn't have for 10 years. I miss to have an home base. I'm still considering.
Yeah, but it's so funny that you should say that, because I've heard from several different long-time nomads that once you hit the 10-year mark is when you say, maybe it would be nice to have a home base again.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah. I never thought about that, but
it's a breaking news.
Yeah, it's a big milestone anyway.
Yeah.
So 10 years, you feel even when you say it, you say, "Wow, 10." It looks that is a big time, and then you wonder if you will be able to do another 10 years like that. Yeah. But then I say, well, I work online, that's what I know how to do it, and I will always travel. I don't see myself staying years and years always in one place.
No, but the way that I see it, when I've only been traveling for 7 years full time, and when I at some point stop traveling full time and get a home base, it will never be the big house that I had before, because I'm so used to living in a small Airbnb. I'd much rather spend the little money that I have on more traveling. And even though I have a home base, I can still be traveling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't need a big space.
So, Nora, it happened to you as well, feeling burnout after 10 years. What happened?
So I'd lost all sense of belonging in the world, and I didn't really understand why or what was happening to me, but I figured it out in the next subsequent few years. And what had happened was, so I thought I'm missing a cultural sense of belonging. So I went back to Canada, and I thought, all right, I got a place in Canada, because Canada's my people. And I got back to Canada, and I set up a place, and I discovered that Canada's not my people. Well, I mean, they're not my people, but they're not the people that I was looking for. So the next piece of that puzzle that I found was I met and traveled with somebody who had participated in a lot of co-living and co-working programs, and he had this really substantial social network of people who had remote careers and travel lifestyles. And these people were not travel bloggers, or they did not have active social media accounts, so they were not people who perhaps I knew. They weren't in my industry as a content creator, and they weren't, selling the lifestyle. They were just ordinary people who had careers that just happened to be remote, and they happened to travel the world, and they also happened to be really cool people. Yeah. So when I was traveling with this guy and I met these people, every place we stopped, he knew people, and it was really cool. They were really awesome people. So I thought, and I saw that he had a really active, amazing social life. Actually, you know who this is. This is Matt Bowles.
And I thought so.
Right?
I thought so, yeah.
So,
he's the guy who has the podcast, the Maverick Show, and the guy who says, "Hey, this is Matt Bowles."
Welcome to the Maverick Show.
Exactly, that guy.
Who, of course, you know because you've been on the Nomad cruise. You also have participated in some of these programs that connect you with other people who have.
I've never done remote year like Matt has. I've never done any of those programs, Wi-Fi Tribe, remote year, but I've done the Nomad Cruise, Nomad Base, and also here, Nomad Fest in Bansko, and of course T-Bex. And I love the communities, but I've actually, it dawned on me, I've never stayed at a co-living space.
Mm-hmm. So, to continue this tale.
Sorry.
No, it's all good, because that's a perfect entrance to the tale. So, I saw his social network. I gained an understanding that those are the people that I was looking for. And then ultimately, I connected all the dots and realized that when I started as a digital nomad, it wasn't a word, it wasn't a term, there was no tools, services, infrastructure, anything for people like us. So I felt like I was totally alone in what I was doing in the world. And although I know I wasn't the only person in the world to be doing it, I sure felt that way in it my own way. But that's okay, because of course my mission was to live around the world. So that's exactly what I did. I lived very locally around the world. However, the downside to that over the long term was that I was also perpetually misunderstood everywhere I went. Nobody got me. Nobody understood that I wasn't on vacation. Nobody understood what it is to work remotely and that time on my computer was working. Nobody understood my cadence and pace of travel, and that I wasn't, conquering all the tourist sites within the first 2 weeks of arrival. And this perpetual misunderstanding, the swimming against this stream of misconceptions, is what caused me to lose all this sense of my belonging in the world. So I then realized through all of these events that I wanted to continue to have these local experiences, but then I also needed to mix it up by creating a social network of people who have the same lifestyle. Now, to come back to the beginning of our conversation of the term digital nomad and how it's evolved, when I went back to Canada to get this home base, I thought, wow, that's it. I'm not a digital nomad anymore. I've got a home base, right? So I don't satisfy the definition of being fully nomadic. But around that time, digital nomad started becoming quite a popular term and a popular idea. And a lot of people wanted to try it out themselves, but maybe not go all in the way I did. Fast forward another year or so, and I don't know if you heard, but we had a pandemic.
Really?
It was a thing. And companies around the world were forced to go remote or become obsolete, which of course means on the other side of it, there are now millions, if not billions of people who have remote careers. Yeah. Countries around the world have also seen this and see a trend because a lot of these people want to try traveling long-term while working remotely. So they jump on the catchy term digital nomad and they create digital nomad visas. And then all these people want to become digital nomads. Did you know that 35 million people around the world identify as digital nomads?
No.
Right? But of course, as you and I both well know, they are not proverbially homeless. They are not full-time travelers. They are people who are trying out the travel lifestyle for perhaps a few months, maybe even a few years. Most of them probably still have a home base. And that's totally cool. I don't care. I'm not going to be a purist when it comes to the definition of digital nomad. But what this means is that definition, the idea of being a digital nomad, has broadened dramatically. Yeah. So it also means I can continue to call myself a digital nomad 17 years in.
And for somebody with a home base, you travel a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, in the next year, I will be in my home base for a month and a half. But I have it. I mean, I was there for 4 months earlier, so, it all balances out.
Yeah, it was like, no. I remember when you told me, no, that's it. I'm moving back home, and then you're a month and a half.
Yeah, but you know what? So the last time you and I met, it was prior to the pandemic. I'd just gotten the home base. I was pretty intent on spending at least 6 months a year there, which is more or less what I did, cumulatively. Mm-hmm. But then the pandemic hit, and I was locked down there, hardcore, for a year and a half. So that kind of soured me a little bit on being there. So now that we're on the other side, I'm stretching my wings again. And now that I understand all these amazing ways that I can travel and live around the world with co-living and co-working programs, I'm more energized. Yeah. I've been doing this for 17 years, and I found a whole new way to travel the world. Yeah. It's really exciting for me right now, which is why I'm diving all in for this next year.
It's the Hobo 2.0.
Right? There you go. I like that. I got to get that domain.
But I'm kind of thinking when I get a home base again, because I'm pretty sure that I will at some point. I'm getting close to 10 years, so that's when the wall hits me. Now that you told me, I think I can push it to 11 or 12 before it happens. But I'm thinking to get a home base and just be in the same place, because you talked about the pandemic. I was in Cape Town. I had the most amazing apartment that a friend of mine rented to me for very fair price, and I was there for 2.5 months. Prior to that, my average days in the same place was 3.5 days. And that was after 3.5 years of traveling. Yeah. And 2.5 months in the same place, even though it was wonderful, I was going out of my skull because I was so used to packing and unpacking. And then I realized, hey, I can't leave the country, but I can move within Cape Town. Yeah. So when they loosened up a little bit and we went from level 5 to level 4, I moved to the CBD of Cape Town. And then after a month there, I moved to Hout Bay. And then I moved to 500 meters to another apartment in Hout Bay, and then to Camps Bay. So I stayed in 5 different places in my 9 month in Cape Town, and it still made me feel a little bit like a vagabond.
Well, and actually, it's interesting you talk about that. So I'm not sure about the 500-meter move, but the other moves to different parts of the same city and different parts of the same town, I think actually can be a really interesting cultural insight because, in a city the size of Cape Town, every neighborhood has its own flavor. So being able to throw yourself into a new neighborhood where you don't necessarily know where the local store is and you have to rediscover, how to make it a familiar haunt. Now, for you, with an average of 3.5 days in a place, I don't know that you ever become familiar with a place enough to have that.
Oh, I do.
You do? Okay.
Well, To be fair, I did a lot of road tripping, so it's just one night and then on to the next place. And then sometimes I stayed a full 3 weeks. Oh, yeah. So, Shaun, Nora said that after 10 years is when, as a nomad, is where you typically hit the mark where you want to have a home base again. And you've been traveling for 11 years almost. Are you feeling that you need a home base now?
Yeah, I think probably the last 2 years I've seen the value of having a home base. Even if it's just for somewhere to leave all your stuff.
Right.
You know, because I live in Australia. I'm from Australia, and you know, when I'm in Europe, or you know, when I'm traveling between Europe and Asia. The different, you know, if you're traveling to Europe in the winter, you need to have a lot of, you know, winter kind of clothing. And if you're traveling in Asia, you don't need that winter clothing. It would be nice to have somewhere where I can leave all my stuff, basically. Yeah. But I think as well, I think the base solution also solves like the social isolation and the loneliness aspect of the lifestyle, because if you live in a place, if you set up Bansko, for example,
a lot of people do get an apartment here and have it as a base and a place to keep their stuff. Base.
The cool thing is, you know, a lot of people in Bansko, a lot of other nomads do use it as a base, so they're here for extended periods of time and they come back here again and again and again. And if you also have a base here, you can make friends with these nomads that are here more long term. And then every time you come back to Bansko, you're probably going to know people that were here last time you were here. So you don't have to start from page one in terms of getting to know people. You have a community that you can drop into. So I see the base solution is great for just having somewhere where you can leave all your stuff, but also having this community that you can drop into whenever you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely this is a common thing to all the veteran digital nomads. Yeah. So we know them, and we know that after many years they started to slow down. Yeah.
So, dear listeners, you heard it here first. Gianni is considering having a home base.
Yeah, I'm considering.
He's not saying that he's doing it.
No, not yet. So I'm looking around. The thing is, you become also very picky, you know, when you travel a lot, because you want to decide, okay, this country, this other country, and maybe you look for the perfect country, but doesn't exist the perfect country, so you keep traveling.
So if that home base wasn't Italy, where would it be?
Well, definitely. Before I was like 3-4 years ago, I was thinking that Southeast Asia will be my place to call home base. But it's not anymore like that. I changed my mind. I went to Southeast Asia this year for 8 months, and I had this feeling that it's not going to be my own base there. And so I'm reconsidering Europe. So it could be Bansko, it could be Eastern Europe.
Not Lisbon like many other nomads. No, that's Lisbon. Where they go to retire.
No, Lisbon. No, I love Lisbon, but I don't want to stay in a place that is too trendy. Well, how can I say? So I want to stay in a place that, there is a good mix of locals and digital nomads. I don't want to go out on the streets and every person that I meet is a digital nomad. No, it's good to stay also with other communities, not always with the community of digital nomads. That's important. Yeah.
Here's Palle's pickup.
To sum it up, travel fast or slow, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Fast travel is about the adrenaline rush of exploration, the thrill of the unknown, and the inevitable dread of airport security lines. It's like trying to juggle flame torches. Exciting, but you might get burned. And slow travel, that's like sipping a fine wine, one tiny sip at a time, soaking in the flavors, aromas, and any random dog names in the local coffee shops. Sure, you might get to know the cafe owner's pub better than your own relatives, but hey, that's a win in the community department. and about logistics. Because the wheels of those suitcases don't roll themselves, quick travel means more new experiences per minute, but it also means more Google searches for cheap flights, and with slow travel you get more Airbnb discounts for longer stays and more ways to say, what do you mean it's how much for a taxi? And let's not forget the community factor. Slow travel lets you nestle into a place where you won't have to ask for the Wi-Fi password 5 times a day. Plus, it's harder to get work done when you're constantly on the move. In these conversations, I have found myself as the odd one out. That I'm a real-life flash among nomads. In the whirlwind of 2022, I hopped continents more than a kangaroo with caffeine addiction. 102 different beds in more than 30 countries, and about a gazillion airport security checks. Yeah, it was insane, but it feels right, and for me, it's don't look at me like that.
No, I'm looking at you like this because it's like I would find that so hard, but yeah, I completely appreciate if it feels right for you.
Yeah.
Like that's what's great about this whole thing. Like you do what's right for you.
But I can tell that I'm different than most nomads. You've really given me something to think about. Let's have a look at my year from January 1st until now, mid-August. I started in Sydney, Australia, with the fireworks in front of Sydney Opera House. Then, after moving around Australia for a few months, I went to New Zealand and did a road trip. Then Greece, Denmark, Bulgaria, a few places in the US before going to Belize, where I am right now as I'm editing this episode. Let me see, I slept in 43 different beds this year up until now. 43 places in 7.5 months. That's an average of 5.3 days in the same place, and if I keep going at this pace, it will get me to 69 places by the end of the year. Not 102, only 69. So I have slowed down in 23, but not much, to be honest. In these conversations, I've also learned that the need for speed isn't universal. Most digital nomads treat their stay like a picnic, spreading the blanket for a longer time, learning neighbors' names and investing in local friendships. And fast travelers like me are more saying, oh, there's another country, let's go. So whether you're collecting passport stamps or becoming the local barista's BFF, there's no wrong way to travel as a digital nomad. How's your travel pace? How fast are you going as a digital nomad? Or how fast would you like to go if you become a digital nomad? Please let me know on the Radio Vagabond on Facebook. In the next episode with the 7 digital nomads, we're talking work-life balance. That's in a week, and on Friday, we're boarding a scenic train ride of dreams in Sri Lanka. My name is Palle, and I gotta slow down. See ya.
Produced by radioguru.co.uk.